I can do things at WED without asking anybody, even my
Coney
wife.
Island, world's biggest barrel of
And
fun.
anywhere else your imagination takes you.
Okay, we've done that now, Paul.
To get the whole show now, you hurry, hurry, hurry.
Anything's possible in Disneyland.
Welcome aboard the Themed Attraction Podcast, where we take you for a ride through the wonderful world of theme park design, that is. You've just set course for discovery and discussion with theme park industry masters of the craft. I'm your skipper, Freddie Martin, and kicking it in the boat beside me is theme park designer, master planner, and chief creative officer of Storyland Studios, Mel McGowan. Where are we off to today, Mel?
Well, Freddie, I hope you've been a good boy because we're going to see Santa Claus. Woo! We're heading up a winding road to the beautiful San Bernardino Mountains where we met the new owners of SkyPark at Santa's Village. Santa's Village is a pretty unique mid-century family roadside attraction that opened just before Disneyland did in 1955, and it's become a go-to destination for families looking for mountaintop fun. Although the park closed in 1998, and it really would have been lost to Kitsch history if it wasn't for the vision and passion of two really unique entrepreneurs that have just poured their heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears into this special place. You're going to love meeting Bill and Michelle Johnson. They've combined their love and passion for outdoor and extreme sports, as well as the unique heritage of the mountain architecture and kind of alpine lodge kind of vibe with the park's family feel, to reopen it as SkyPark at Santa's Village in 2016. We had a chance to sit down with Bill and Michelle, this, again, amazing husband and wife power couple, to hear how they took a hold of the opportunity of a lifetime to resurrect a theme park and to bring back some really good bones.
Yeah, it's amazing. I cannot wait to meet Santa. I can't wait to meet Bill and Michelle in one of the most amazing interviews I think we've done yet. All right, folks, keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the boat because this episode is about to leave the dock. Hit it, Sam.
Well, Freddie, I remember Santa's Village. Do you?
I sure do. I grew up here in Southern California and saw a lot of KTLA Channel 5 commercials for what to do on the weekend. And I remember Santa's Village commercials vividly and begging the family to go up there. And we had family friends who had a cabin up there. So from time to time, we would stop by and check out Santa's Village. And what a fun place it was in the 1970s, at least.
Well, this couple, Bill and Michelle, have done something incredibly gutsy. They've literally put all they have into creating an exciting place for families to come, make some special memories. We see that with so many other parks, from Walt Disney to some of our visionary clients here at Storyland. But what do you think's kind of behind this outrageous impulse to design a theme park?
Yeah, seriously.
Or to resurrect a theme park.
Yeah, in this case, they knew they had the property. They had a place that they could start something with passion. But what was really cool that we're going to find out from them is that it combined with their own passion for the outdoors, with their passion for extreme sports, with their passion for doing something with their time that wasn't just around screens. And so they decided they wanted to share that with the rest of the world. And I think that's the same with most of these themed entertainment properties that we get to be involved in and go visit these days. Is these are places where somebody had it in them to share what they love with other people.
Well, I was really struck by the fact that for them it was almost really more about stewarding the site, and giving people an opportunity to just have access to these amazing trails and to visit the site. But then again, upon kind of grabbing the deed and the keys, again, seeing these bones that were rapidly deteriorating, had been left to waste and rot away. But again, they just couldn't help themselves. It was definitely never part of their original plan, but they could not help themselves but to but to literally renew, restore, and bring this thing back to life, including some of this wonderful mid-century alpine architecture.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place, and what's really shocking and surprising is that this thing should not work. There was a massive drought. There were the bark beetles that threatened to destroy all of that wonderful wilderness that's up there. And yet, here's these people with all the guts to just dig in, and we are going to make this thing work. And you're going to hear it in their voices that it has been a whole lot of work. But we went up there, visited one day this last winter, and saw what it is that they're doing with it, and it's truly, truly incredible.
Yeah, it also strikes me there was enough original integrity in the original founder and creator's vision.
Yeah.
And that's not a real part of the story that we're going to emphasize, but there's enough there that somehow, again, stood the test of time, that had this couple that wasn't really interested in the industry, be able to kind of fall enough in love with it to be willing to resuscitate it and redeem it.
Well, let's get headed towards the North Country, Mel. We've got to head straight to the bitter cold of Southern California's high country for our interview with Bill and Michelle Johnson, the visionaries behind SkyPark at Santa's Village. You ready? Let's do it. Well, thank you, Bill and Michelle Johnson, for having us here. We're so excited to be at SkyPark, Santa's Village.
Great to have you guys here.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's great. We just finished up a fun tour with some of our team. We were up here in the mountains already, enjoying the beauty of this wonderful area, and decided to stop by and hang out with you and learn more about this really amazing park, which has a huge, fantastic history. And you as leaders just bring so much to it. We just can't wait to hear your story and share it.
I so wish that our listeners could have come along for the little nickel tour that we got with your neighbor, Tony Baxter, a good friend of ours, and you guys, and to hear kind of that confluence of Disney history, legacy, of his take and your take on where you are today is really inspiring.
Yeah. So I think we could go backwards a little bit and start with how you got involved and decided, like, it opened 3 years ago, right? Reopened 3 years ago. So let's kind of start from there. Why did it end up in your hands, and what was your passion for it? And how did this happen?
You're good at telling that story.
Wow, that's a big story. So start off by, it was my first job when I was 13 years old.
Oh, cool.
So knew the original owners of the park. They were the owners that built it. Opened 6 weeks before Disneyland.
Wow.
In
May of 55 or something?
Yeah, 1955, Memorial Day weekend. Sold out. There's a line all the way down the mountain. I mean, it's crazy.
I've seen pictures.
Amazing.
So there's this like cultural resource. There's this history to it that is fascinating. Michelle and I are both from the town, from Lake Arrowhead. This being in Sky Forest, right next door. And it went through a transition of being this historic park to a mom and pop kind of park that had all of this legacy that we've kind of talked about as we walked around, and all this history about the buildings, being built from the woods and all this great stuff that you just can't get anywhere, to then for us watching it get closed down and watching. We had a bark beetle infestation in our town, which ended up being, for 11 years, we were a recorded national disaster area. And to see it go into this huge dysfunctional ghost town, if you will. And we lost employment. Our school districts dropped in half because of the loss of opportunity in the community. And then, we're in the real estate business, and so we're familiar with the ins and outs of our community, and the for sale sign flew up on it. And we drove by and kept seeing this for sale sign, and then one day I came home and I said, "Hey, what do you think about if we bought Santa's Village?" And Michelle's kind of
I had a moment of like insanity probably where I was like, "Oh, that's a good idea." And then now I'm kind of thinking that was crazy. But anyways, we used to trespass here and ride our bikes. and snowshoe and do all this great stuff. And so that's why we liked it.
I mean, the forest alone, if you're familiar with California or Southern California, even whether you're talking about the Sierras or anywhere, we don't have the density of forest that we have. And this is kind of like a coastal range, the San Bernardino Mountains. Heavy fog, tons of water, and so we have almost like a rainforest type atmosphere where the woods are so thick. It is so magical when you go into the forest behind the park that's what our attraction was. We were just mesmerized by it and thought if we could own this property, how fantastic would that be?
And the property encompasses how many acres?
230 total acres. The park itself is 15 acres with all the buildings and the fun, and then we've adapted about 100.5 acres behind that is a trail system eco park that the family can come enjoy the commercial nature of a theme park, but then get immersed into this natural world, which just transforms you. It's great.
I got to tell you, I mean, you might think that it was unique that you drove by the for sale sign and said, wouldn't it be neat if we could purchase that place? But I think there was a collective, oh no, Santa's Village is closing across Southern California. And a lot of people, I even remember having conversations with friends, wouldn't it be fun to go ahead and do that? And I would imagine that that's repeated, especially here in the community, and then as you radiate out. And so I think, you are the fortunate ones who took that step forward.
Yeah, and it's interesting being in the brokerage business. Yeah. Like we knew about it. People would approach us and say, hey, what do you know about Santa's Village? We're interested in buying this. And where we were a bit naive is the fact that we didn't realize that there's no such thing really as grandfathering a park. We even talked to Tony Baxter here about the submarine ride at Disneyland, how there was a lot of things that were grandfathered that would help them with ADA law, things that they just couldn't comply with. It's not possible because it was built before then. We thought, or I thought specifically, that we would be able to reopen this park. We would have land use. We would have the commercial use of the property. It was a cultural resource. There was no way that anybody would fight us on reopening the park. And boy, soon as we closed and we started moving forward and making the corrections to the park, we immediately got shut down. And it was like, whoa, you don't have land use. The environmental groups had come in and petitioned the county a decade before and changed all the zoning and erased all the commercial use out of it, and it was slated to be residential housing. The fear being that there was no way that anybody would be crazy enough to resurrect a park that is completely dysfunctional and dilapidated. They thought, the next thing that's going to be in here is going to be a big box store. It will be a commercial center, and it will wreck the integrity of our community. And because of that fear, they changed it to residential, thinking, let's just wipe out the commercial idea of that whole beautiful acreage. And so when we walked in thinking, we're going to make this park and build this park back, boy, did we get a splash of cold air. So we got thrown through the entire entitlement process of California of having to do environmental impact reports. 17 different studies, and now here we are later, millions of dollars in just environmental work just to get the permission to bring the park back.
Just to ride bikes. And to restore buildings that had been abandoned and to ride bikes through the forest.
And back to Freddie's original comment of, all these people had this idea of bringing the park back. Once most people looked into it, they realized this is too much to take on.
So what made it special about you? I mean, you did head forward. So what made it special about you as individuals, and then your situation that made it possible?
Well, I'll answer the first part, and I'll have Michelle finish this. But my background is in urban development. I have a degree in development. I worked on master plan communities. I have a good sense of the process of development, which gave me some insight of, hey, I could do this, right? This is something that could be done. But I think where the lever was, and I'll let Michelle kind of dive in here, we have a background in remodeling. And that's...
Yeah, we've been doing it for years, and 18 buildings, that doesn't sound like too hard, right? I mean,
just 18 cabins.
I mean, it really didn't seem that difficult to do for me. I mean, I have an amazing team of people, but I also didn't want to run a amusement park.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of am like a builder type of person, and I like all the different touches of creativity I can have here, but I don't think I really was like wanting to have a theme park.
And I think that's where we were naive. We're developers, we're builders, we understand it. We love art, we love culture, we love the resurrection of this historic theme park. What we didn't see coming down the pipeline was hundreds of employees and learning how to operate.
We've had to adapt.
Yeah, how to
quickly.
operate. And in some ways, that's been refreshing, and that's been an asset for this park, I think, because we wanted to do it a different way. We didn't have a background. That's 50% of the glass is half full.
Yeah.
The 50% of the glass is, half empty was, how do you make it cash flow?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you make it work? And that's been the challenge that we go through every day.
Can you step back and kind of, for our listeners that aren't familiar with the original incarnation of Santa's Village, kind of compare and contrast kind of that original historic park or the vision that was Santa's Village for so many years and so many collective memories, comparing and contrasting that to your vision and what SkyPark is today?
Well, the original Santa's Village was developed during a time when there was a boom in like mid-century amusement parks, and they also really focused on like the storybook theming. And you guys know from Disney,
it wasn't just Santa, right?
It wasn't just Santa, but it
public
was the original idea guy was this guy Glenn Holland, and he had this. I don't know. He read something in a magazine. I think it was. The Saturday Evening Post, and there's a lot of stories about him in history, and they were he was just very mesmerized by this story about the Santa's Village or whatever. So he came up with this idea. He presented it to all kinds of investors. They raised stock. They did all these things. I mean, this is the history I know. Yeah. It might be not totally accurate, but it was just a storybook place that everybody really enjoyed. It was at the same time as Disney, so there was kind of piggybacking, I think, on that. And then it operated for 40 something years in that capacity. And then I think that it kind of went through a lot of bankruptcy issues, ownership issues, things like that. And so it didn't have the quality, I think, that it would, like comparing it to Disney, it didn't have that kind of backing. It didn't have the movies. It didn't have all these things to get the financial backing. So it closed. And I think for us, we really are very interested in outdoor activities. We wanted something like that. We really didn't want Santa's Village.
Yeah, and that's an interesting story because when we first started this, we were coming here to snowshoe. We were coming here to mountain bike ride and hike.
And we were getting caught a lot.
Yeah, we were trespassing.
You were trespassing.
Yeah, we were getting caught a lot.
This is my favorite part of the story.
But the property was so beautiful. I mean, we have the oldest apple trees in the San Bernardino Mountains, for instance. They were planted in the late 1800s. Yeah. I mean, the history of this whole place. The state record for grizzly bears are all set here because they didn't have to hibernate because we're at 6,000 feet. So they're killing 1,200-pound grizzly bears. I mean, the cultural resource, and I keep going back to that statement, is, it's so unique. It is so different than any other place. And even, Mel, back to your question of, then and now. When they designed this, they built, like I said, they built the buildings from the trees, from the property. They brought in, old diesel generators and contractors, and they just went through this old school mid-century construction style that there weren't ADA laws. There wasn't safety concerns. You could go behind a true reindeer-driven sleigh and pet the reindeer and have this interaction.
And you did.
And you did. And it's that kind of history that was so great that you can't replicate it. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think was interesting for us in building it. Was how do you replicate that? How do you go back and make a mid-century village, which really was designed to be even a pre-century village? I mean, they're cabins. They're log cabins. There's this feel that you have that's so natural coming through the park, and to recreate that, what a challenge and how much fun it's been. And The park today is trying to get back to that.
Yeah.
We've done an extensive job of trying to get rid of the power in this park, like have self-powered things, not hydraulics, and not have all this stuff. So we have climbing towers, climbing rooms, pedaling cars, pedaling rides, the fly fishing that we talked about that we're bringing in to the park, and these different things that you can come out and your family can drop the cell phone.
Yeah.
Say, forget it. That we're gonna be together today as a family, and that's Walt Disney's dream. If you read the history of Walt Disney, he was trying to build a park that a family could go to on a Saturday and be together as a family.
Yeah.
There's a real powerful idea that you're doing, the idea of recreation, of connecting horizontally with your family, again, without the screen kind of as a mediation, but then also vertically with creation and nature, and being able to do that simultaneously, I think is something we're just wired to do as people.
And those are the things that we're learning because we are trying to do a new kind of park, and we have done a new kind of park, but what we've learned is the teenager or even the parent, they're not going to put their cell phone down. So although we try and get them out of that, we have to accommodate both. So, fiber optics have been brought into the park to make sure that everything is state of the art so that you can walk through the park and you can stream live and you can do all those things. So we've had to hybrid things from the old park to the new way of doing things. And like we said, we brought in an ice rink, which is what I've learned is ice rinks are not eco-sensitive. I mean, they draw a lot of power, but we were able to build a power that takes about a rink that takes about 30% of the power of a normal rink. So we've done what we can in the areas that we can in order to make this place different.
Yeah.
Well, what I really appreciate is, again, the care and concern you put into also kind of redeeming some of the abandoned buildings. I mean, I know Tony Baxter actually at breakfast was sharing that Harriet Burns, one of the original WED Imagineers, that was really involved with the Model Factory, had been involved with kind of creating some of these structures, or at least designing them, and it's really like the details you've put into it actually, I think, in some levels make it better than they may have originally been in terms of at least the quality of construction and detailing in some cases.
Everything that we recreated was made like they did it before. So we brought a sawmill in and we did, I think even some things in this room have been recreated from a sawmill. You wouldn't be able to tell.
And we're in the former boys' restroom, by the way.
Yes, we are in the restroom.
Complex, but it is the coziest office space I've ever been in. Right
just
now.
for a description, it is raw-hewn logs from this property. It's now their office, but you can see the notches in the wall where the urinals used to be hung, but now it's like this very cozy place to do work, and all decorated for Santa's in the sort of Santa thing, including the leg lamp from Christmas Story. So this is a really good spot to share both nostalgia and sort of the future of this awesome park. So what we were talking about, I'd love to hear talk a little bit more about the history and what we do know a little bit about that. Is that?
Yeah, and also the transition to even the next generation. I mean, you guys are creating kind of a new theme park typology, just kind of like we were talking to the Evermore guys, Josh and Josh, and I know that you're friends with them and you've kind of connected with that. How would you describe the park? I mean, you wouldn't call it a kiddie park or a theme park necessarily. Do you have a kind of a...
I mean, I like to coin it more of an adventure park, but I also know that other theme parks called themselves that. But I think we're a true adventure when you come here, because it's not like you're getting on rides, you're doing things, you're like actually having an adventure. So I theme it that. I talk about it that way.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when you're zipping through the forest.
Yeah, I mean, we do coin it as an adventure park. And I think it's really hard for people to understand, this like Santa's Village mixed with this adventure park. And so we kind of have tried to market it like Santa's Adventure Park. But in the summers, we really do focus more on the summer adventure. And we've tried to make it, we have Arrow, the dog, Santa's dog, and he really does come to the forefront in our theming when it comes to the summers. And we have a huge mountain bike culture that is here. That's just a completely different thing that you kind of can't, you don't mix that with a theme park as much. And that's what's really unique is there's like mountain biking and then there's like Santa at his house. And it's just kind of this mashup of all this stuff. And it's hard for people to understand, but then they're starting to get it.
Yeah, I'm starting to get it too, in that there's this nostalgia for this park, what it originally was. There's families with young kids who want a fun outing that just really immerses them in the Santa Claus story, which you've got. Yeah. Then you have your passion, which is adventure and outdoors, and this forest in particular, which is your own sort of where you were grown. You're grown here just like these trees, and you mash those together. It's not such a mashup. It's sort of this beautiful layering of three generations going on here, and it's fascinating to see this place.
It actually feels pretty organic, even today with in the Christmas season with the kids and the mountain bikers heading off to the trails. Yeah. It actually feels pretty organic. Like this is just this great kind of alpine themed base camp that you can head off to these other. We were talking about Whistler and some of these other
Whistler's an inspiration. Yeah, that was an inspiration for us because we're huge mountain bikers, and so we've done all the parks, and Whistler's amazing because we have it has just all the infrastructure for your experience there, no matter if you're snowboarding or you're biking. And that's where our inspiration was for that. Was we saw the village and we're like, oh my gosh, we can make a pub, and we can make we have this amazing pub here, like it's where everybody ends up at the end of the day, and like it's really cool, and we have great food, and there's just all this stuff that's going on that's that goes with it. It's not just
such
one
a multi-layered experience.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I'm sipping my latte from your awesome coffee house. You got the barbecue restaurant, the Fantasy Forest night light walk. It's just such a multi-layered.
And puppets
experience.
And
puppet shows
outdoor
and
theater.
You got to talk a little bit
weddings,
about the entertainment, because just some of the walk-around characters, again, remind me a little bit of the Evermore experience. But tell me about.
Well, we kind of have our own character back layer with Santa Claus. A lot of our characters are based around him and our Northwoods, which is the forest surrounding us. There's elf royal families, and they all are related to each other. There's a Princess Evergreen. There's King Kelwyn. They're all immersed in their own story, and they tell the stories when they do entertainment. So they have stories of the Northwoods, which is basically getting people to know them and what they're about. We do have edutainment here, which is kind of a layering between what the nature is versus their story. So we kind of mash that up a little bit together. It's really fun. It does have a little Ren Fair flavor to some of our characters. I design all the costumes and all the characters. I have a couple of
really wonderfully detailed, by the way.
Thank
Love
you.
Some of the leather work and the bells and the details.
Yeah, it's been. I have had some designers help me with them, but the whole vision of the group is mine. And they, we just keep adding people, characters, and having new thoughts. We don't have the movies or any of the things. I really believe that Disneyland was able to create so much fandom or whatever because of their movies and all of these things, and we don't have that here, so we have to sort of present that to our guests in another way.
Well, you've been able to take that Santa Claus kind of
folklore,
and kind of extend that universe,
Right. We try to make it a little bigger for everyone, and all of the characters. They do things like we have our Fantasy Forest tour during the day, which is all about medicinals and what you can use out of the forest and what you can eat, and it's guided by Queen Wisdom, and it's like very amazing. Like people love her, and like they really feel like they get something out of that, So we have this layer. Christmas is a lot more of our Christmas entertainment, but all year long we have this character overlay that is amazing, very interactive. And that's one of the reasons why we went to Evermore, was to get a little bit more of that going on here and seeing how they did their questing and their different, just how they did it. I was very inspired by the idea of that, the immersion of the theater and everything. And I'd like to incorporate more of that here. And that's kind of what I took away from going there.
Yeah. And the same thing, too. I don't know if you've gone to Ghost Town Alive at Knott's Berry Farm. Their summertime thing is very much gamified as well. And you get this sense. My 17-year-old son, who would much rather be on the roller coasters, were walking through Ghost Town with his little cousins who were interested in the cowboys. But as soon as he realized that it was very much like the games that he plays, where he has to go up to somebody, get a quest, and go off and go get stuff, changed the whole day. I mean, we never went and got in line for a roller coaster because Ghost Town Alive was telling us that story. And the same thing is going with Evermore, and I could really sense it when we met the characters, that they are tied in. They're going to lead you to one another, and they know each other's characters, and there's an interaction that's really quite cool.
Yeah, they're I feel like we're new to this industry, but we're different in some ways, and they're the same, like they're different, and they're trying to figure it out too. And I don't come from any kind of cosplay, but we did go there and dress up, and it was amazing, and it totally changed it. I think being part of Evermore is like the way to go. I think you should dress up and go there. And someday maybe that'll be something that we have here. We do get people doing a little bit of dressing up, but it's not really, it hasn't been like that here.
How do you tell a story when people listen with more than their ears? Stories change lives. They make us remember, but only when they are felt and not just heard. Storyland Studios builds the impossible. We turn big ideas into reality. We tell stories in 3 dimensions to stir the senses so you can walk into places you've only seen in your dreams, in real life and real time. Storyland's artists, architects, and artisans take stories out of the imagination and build tangible dreams that leave lasting impressions and memories that endure for years. What's your story? Storyland Studios is themed entertainment, destination design, production, and fabrication. Connect with the team at Storyland Studios to get started building your impossible dream today. Visit StorylandStudios.com or call now 800-218-1932. That's 800-218-1932. Storyland Studios, your big ideas' best ally.
Well, I'm curious on kind of a little bit of the left brain kind of fundamentals. You mentioned cash flow, just the fundamentals of getting something up and running, but then still kind of continuing to recapitalize and grow the market. I know that you've got other phases planned and under construction. Can you speak to that kind of tension of just getting the thing open, keeping the cash flow going, but then continuing to stretch and expand kind of the offerings and including the development across the street?
Yeah, we've been building ever since we opened. Like I said, I don't know if you heard it, but our ice rink cement was still wet the day we opened. I mean, it's just in our nature to build. It's not there yet. It's not where we want it to be, and we will constantly build. So
it reminds me of the Evermore guys too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no,
normally it's like, okay, we borrow the money.
Right.
Now the investors and the lenders want the return on investment.
Yeah.
So
And it was fun to go to see their park because it was looking at our park in the mirror. I mean,
It was.
Our park is designed to be complementary of all the features within the park for it to work. It's a machine. It's a function of the park, right? I mean, it's like the Death Star. And, you know what I mean? It's not done yet, but eventually we're going to rule the universe. It's that kind of a thing where we've come in and we've got this park that's going. Originally, the very first concept of the park was, hey, I would go to Whistler, or I would go to Mammoth, or I would go to this mountain bike park, but I would never take my family.
Yeah.
So it was alone time.
and I would be that person. I would be the bike widow.
Yeah, so she's the bike widow. So it was like, well, what if we designed a park where you could come ride your bike, but your family's begging to come?
Yeah.
Like it works for everybody. Go ride your bike while they go play in the park, and all meet for lunch, and this dynamic is something that's growing organically. It's really weird how popular this has become. But because of that, there's other dynamics to it. There's fly fishing that isn't. If we're in our 3rd year now, it's still not in play. It will be in play in the next 90 days. So that's just coming on board. There's a campground that was absolutely required for this place to cash flow. I was saying it's 3 years to finally get to the campground, but then you could come and you could stay for, let's say you live within 2 hours of here. Yeah. It's still, how fun would it be? You come in Friday night, you have fun in the park, go to the pub, do your thing, and then you can have evening entertainment at the park and then just go crash out.
Yeah.
And not have to do a drive and leave like most theme parks. You're driving to and from. So we knew we needed all these different components and for it to work and for it to really cash flow.
Yeah.
And it's fun for us right now because we really are starting to make this work and it's starting to cash flow. And we still have these components that we're bringing into the park, which will enhance the experience for the guests. And it's the dynamics of building something for everyone is a challenge, and the creativity that it takes. I'm so impressed with Michelle and how she's been able to like create these characters in this feel, because I can build it, but there's more depth to it than that. You know, anyone can just go build a building, but if you can make that building alive with culture and a feel and some kind of vibe that when you walk in that building you're like, wow, this is this feels awesome, you know. And yes, you guys don't have a screen. She's crying right now.
No, because
tears.
But that's how emotional we are about it. I mean, because we are in so deep, and it's taken so much energy, full time, to come up with new ideas, and some of the ideas throughout the park are brilliant. I mean, they're just fantastic, and so it's neat to get all the nuts and bolts together so that it cash flows and it is a sustainable business. So we don't repeat the old Santa's Village of the struggles and the cash flow problems and you got to build a better mousetrap. So that can be there for the next generation to enjoy.
Like Tom Petty, you guys are running down the dream, but
you're catching up. You're definitely catching up. I mean, you're right on its tail.
That's right, we're right on its tail, and it's what a ride.
Well, what I can definitely see, sense, taste, feel is the passion, the blood, sweat, and tears, the love, the care, the concern. And, you know, I've come through with my kids. We've had a number of our team members come through, and everyone unanimously has come back and just said, man, there's something special here. The passion, you know, behind every employee or cast member or whatever you call it.
Right. Villager.
I love it. The village people.
Yeah, but we're not a board of directors. Yeah. When an idea comes through our employees or through us, you know, it's a quick conversation and it can be implemented. It doesn't have to go to a vote. It doesn't, and that's that kind of culture here at the park that makes it work, makes it neat.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Is it fairly intuitive when you, as a creative director, when you're making decisions of the type of offerings or a new attraction or what have you? Was there in the past a level of a feasibility master plan, or has it been fairly kind of intuitive in terms of the things that you wanted to put forth in the offerings?
I think that, you know, Bill is very creative too, even though he likes to think he's the money man or whatever. But we both are the same like that. I love to crunch numbers. He loves to be creative. Like, we have this thing. But I think that we always make decisions together. We found that it's easier for me and him to do the decision making alone without everybody else, because it gets done faster. It's more like, we don't always agree on stuff, and so when we don't agree, we can say, I don't agree with you. Like, we don't fight, you know, about it, but we do have the freedom to make those decisions, and they have been very intuitive. I think we've talked it through and said, okay, what is about, like, we were just talking about the monorail, and I was kind of not agreeing with him on some stuff, you know, and so we walk through it, you know, and it's still kind of on the table.
It's very intuitive, right? But then, because of the experience we've now had of operating in the park, we're learning that, look, you can put in, let's take our zip line, for instance. You can do a zip line. Its throughput is about 250 people, 300 people a day. That's about what the zip line can handle as far as capacity. Well, if that takes 5 employees to run 250 people today, there's a certain overhead to that attraction of labor costs, the construction costs, and then it's got ongoing operations and maintenance with OSHA and blah, 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 right? So that you have to take all these dynamics. So the zip line was intuitive. Oh, we need a zip line. It's going to go through the trees. It's going to be fantastic. We have this great forest. Let's build it. Now that we've operated it, we take a look at it and we compare it to our climbing tower. Our climbing tower can do 300 plus. It takes 1 employee. it's a different experience, but how do we enhance that? How do we make it so that it has a waterfall in it, and it has the feel, that intuition that we wanted, that first gut of like, hey, we want this great feature, but now we are stepping back, being a little bit more educated, and that's when the finances come in. Then you have to do the overlay.
If you're in a company that had all the right departments and the business analysts, they would have said no in the first place.
That's so intuitive.
That's called naive.
Right. And the mountain bike park is a perfect example. You know, that can handle 1,000 riders in a day, no problem, and they love it. I mean, it doesn't get compacted. It's just an absolutely fantastic experience. It doesn't take any employees.
Yeah. Right.
Wow, what a model. I wish all of the attractions could be like that. Not that we don't want to sustain the local economy and stuff, but there is a certain viability that these attractions have to have in order to make this park sustainable. Yeah. And those are the things that, yes, it's great. It's still the two of us. There's a lot of this knee-jerk passion of, hey, this is what we want. Yeah. But then through the education, we've gotten to the point where we say, okay, now does it make sense? Yeah. Is this really viable, or are we nuts again and doing something? Something that we shouldn't do?
We do say that a lot. Like, okay, I mean, because we don't have a background in this at all, or running a large company like this. I mean,
that's not true. At 13 years old, I worked here.
Well, exactly.
That makes me an expert.
Right. That's right. Oh yeah, you're an expert. I forgot.
Yeah, that's expert.
And the same for me being a creative director. I mean, sometimes I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I mean, but I figure it out. I know I'm creative. I know I have really great people around me that are creative. But you know, I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I have an aesthetic. I have an insane eye for detail, like even down to like how clean it is here. I mean, I'm like constantly seeing things, and so that's where you're seeing that stuff.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, I've got to ask you, my wife Lori's here as well, and we work together, and as a couple working together, do you ever clock out, or is that kind of...
Do we clock each other?
Do we clock in?
I think you've clocked me a couple times. I clock in at
like when my eyes open. No, like we have had a lot of struggles, but we've been married for 25 years, so it's not like we're new to marriage.
Not newbies.
But we've also worked together a lot in our whole life. We've ran companies together. We've remodeled together, so that's not new to us. But definitely, this has challenged us in a lot of ways. Like, but now we're at a good spot where we're like, I don't agree with you. And there has been like a power struggle for us a little bit here.
And we do know each other's strengths, very much. So we do separate and kind of conquer and divide. Mm-hmm. That's been probably our best asset.
Yeah, but it took us a little while to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, so I try not to get into the characters. I try not to get into the entertainment. I try not to get in as much as I want to run the whole thing. Like I could do it, right? So, but the reality is I can't. And she can do a much better job. Michelle's fantastic at it, and so that's her court, and so. Although we work together, we do separate ourselves in what we do at the park so that we complement each other, and we're good. And then at the end of the night, we have a glass of wine and
or
look
two,
at each other or two, or we're like, wow, how'd it go for you today, or whatever. And then we mosh pit, so to speak, our brains.
But we do overlap a lot. I mean, we do run the park together. Yeah. I wouldn't just put myself in one box here, and I don't think he would either. I think we both are constantly overlapping with all the other managers. I mean, we're very hands-on. I mean, so I wouldn't even say like, I mean, I think it's true with you too, with the campground. Like I just went over there for the first time in like 6 months because I don't want to see it until it's ready for me to see it. And I don't want to get in his situation, but I do have my input too, and he appreciates that, and the same vice versa. Like if he says, like yesterday, he's like, I really think we should change our parade. Like let's move it 10 minutes, and I did. You know, so we do that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that's super.
I've got to ask you, a real tangible culture with the villagers and just the experience walking around. What can you share in terms of how you've created that? I mean, is it just a natural outflow of your relationship?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. Super, super controlling. When we first started this, because we're a small town, nobody was hired in this park without seeing the whites of our eyes and going through the interview process with us. Mm-hmm. So we knew every single employee, and we knew their family or who they were or the backstory or that kind of thing. So there's a touch to every single villager that's in this park. Now we're getting too busy. We've lost that grasp, I would say, this year with that, where we just have to bring too many employees on for us, and we have too many things going on. So we do try and get out in the park every single day, and I think we are in the park every single day.
I mean, we're pretty much on duty here.
So,
I mean, I do run around a lot. I think a lot of it is we have interpersonal relationships with a lot of people. We don't put ourselves above anybody here. I'll go out and clean the break room with people. I mean, I do that stuff. Like he was
pumping the septic tank the other day.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
we do what it takes to get the park
So we
running
have
and
created
get it done.
like some kind of respect, I think, there. At least.
It sounds like a servant leadership there.
Yeah, it's a very family unit, and so all the villagers they know each other. We have group me, on our phones, and so we very much are a family that way, much more than any company that I've ever seen. And we get that response back on social media and stuff, and emails and stuff back to us on thanking us and how fantastic the employees are, how friendly they are, how they're so in tune with the park.
Well, as you grow, like you're identifying people. I mean, you were telling us about Santa's brother. What's his name?
King Kelwin.
King Kelwin. And
This is great, by the way.
The guy who's in charge of those characters has those strengths to be able to do that. And you were even sharing how you've empowered him to now take it to that next level, which allows you to trust somebody and move the business forward and grow even where it's not under your direct control, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's really hard for me because I'm like, my daughter was talking to Santa the other day and she told him, my mom's kind of extra. And I was like, because, that's like a thing that kids say right now is that you're extra, which means I guess you're over the top or whatever. And she was telling Santa that, and he goes, I understand. Like, I know.
Yeah. He's experienced.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just very this place wouldn't look like this if we didn't micromanage it at this point. And I think that's going to be our curse a little bit because we won't be able to expand if we don't have the trust in other people. But I think we're learning to do that.
Well, I think we see in some of the great leaders in themed entertainment, the ones that were that tight on holding tight to the vision early on, that later down the road, that's going to be not your curse, but your legacy is that people are going to buy into and believe what story you're telling here. And I think that's super exciting and important.
Yeah, and I think that's fascinating, the conversation that we just had, because going back to the history of Santa's Village, okay, we are the first franchised amusement park, period. We're it. So we opened up before Disneyland. In 1 year of success, this thing was just booming. And so what did the owner do? They went and opened another one. So they went to Dundee, Illinois, and opened up another Santa's Village because of the huge success of it. They then went to Santa Cruz, and they opened another one. So this owner had now 3 Santa's Villages, and it didn't take long before the wheels blew off of all of these parks. And I now see why. Just because the model works and there's a hype and people come to your park, it's like a baby. And I said this somewhere the other day. You're not sure what you get, but you've got this baby, and now you have to raise it. So you don't just go out. There's a reason why.
Sometimes it's easier to pop out another one. Or 2 or 3.
That's right. But I think there's a reason why you don't.
They're keeping the one alive.
That's right. You can't have one baby and then another baby and then another baby. There's a reason why it takes 9 months to have a baby, right? So it's the same kind of thing. I couldn't imagine. Yes, could we go someplace else right now and go replicate this park? Yes, I could build it. But could we replicate the park and the theming and the environment and the people? The people, you couldn't do it. And that part of it was the demise, I believe, of the original Santa's Village. It's a baby. You got to raise it and you have to take care of it. Yeah. There's a responsibility there.
If you were to able to go back and talk to yourselves 5 years, the 5 year ago version of yourself getting the DeLorean, what would you have told yourself?
I want to say a cuss word, but I'm not going to. I would say no, because my life now is so much different than it was. But I think we just were so naive, and I mean, it's good for everybody else, you know, and I think we know that we were, but we're okay with it now. But it was definitely some naivety going on.
Not what you anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really think I would work here.
And I think one of the things is, let's face it, to all your listeners, everybody that's out there, right? What's the American dream? The American dream is you go to school, you get out of school, you get married, you have a family, you have a career, and you get to a point of wealth where you're like, hey, I'm independent, and this is the American dream. I have the car of my dreams. I have a home. Maybe I have even a second home. I mean, what a great lifestyle. What a true American, right? We were there.
Yeah.
And then
Bill got bored.
Bill got bored. And so
he did. He got bored with his career. Like everything was good, and he was like, "Oh, I just want this challenge." And now it's just a challenge. And now I'm like, "I'm gonna kill this challenge. I'm gonna do it. Like I'm not gonna be a quitter.
Right.
Like I'm serious. I'm gonna stay here until I can, like, you know, raise the baby.
Raise the baby.
Yeah.
But it's funny. So when people ask, you know, would you, if you could look back 5 years ago, back to the original question, would you have done it? Probably not.
No, I say hell no.
Probably not. Because we had become the American dream, right? But then something crazy happened, and we thought
it's him. He's the best salesman on earth. He literally talked me into it, and I mean, I try not to blame him all the time.
It's my fault.
But he's an optimist. So every day, like even today, he has this. We quote him all the time. And he always says, like, oh, we're going to do that next week, you know, because he's so optimistic. He's so like, we can do this. And that got us all through all of this because we believe him.
I love it.
But we do. And I mean, like, if it wasn't, we wouldn't be here without that.
Yeah.
Well, I happen to be wearing my Grand Californian team shirt today.
Awesome.
It's got that mountain vibe. And you mentioned there was a tie from that to your home. Talk about your American dream.
Yeah, we built a home. It's been like 10 years ago now, but it was before this. And we built it kind of as a spec house, but we bought a sawmill, and Bill went to Sawyer School and learned how to use the mill. And we were very inspired by that hotel, you know, the grand, you know, the big great room and all the lodges of the
National Park architecture.
Yeah, exactly. And that actually was a segue to building this and taking this over because of, you know, having the experience in doing that kind of work.
Wow. And again, another neat tie. Tony Baxter lives down the street in a neighborhood that was developed by the developer of the park originally, and who developed a lot of SkyPark or Sky Forest here. Yeah. And Tony's convinced that he was actually influenced by seeing his home across the street, the Alpine chalet that Tony lives in now, because it had that Norman kind of chateau, kind of lodge feel, and so there might be some indirect lineage there.
Very possibly.
But so we talked about kind of time traveling to the past. If you could talk to yourself, if you could time travel to the future and give our listeners a taste of what this could and should be. 5, 10, 15 years when you're ready to kind of kiss the baby. Good luck and goodbye. Good riddance.
Go to college.
You know, Michelle did an interview last week where she said it really well, where it's like, if we pull this off and we do it right, you would come to this place with your family, you would lose yourself in this place, whether it's through the characters in the park, through the activities in the park, through the fantastic food and, you know, wines and microbrews and all these things, all these different facets, candy store. I mean, I can just go on and on. That's the goal. Mm-hmm. You come in and you lose yourself, and that the engineering work that you left back at the office, or you're a third grade teacher and the screaming kid that you can't get out of your head. Hopefully that's what we accomplish. You can come here and lose yourself, and you can be with your family. You can be in a place that gets you away from everything. Yeah. And that's it. That's the euphoria. That's it. That's it. If we can do that.
I told my mom that I was coming here and was going to interview you guys, and she sent me on my phone some pictures from when I was 3 years old. She,
awesome.
And she describes the story. You know, your brother was in my womb. It's just you. It's the last of the time when we're a family of 3. There's your dad with you, and she's saying how special that was. And we were going to Lake Gregory, and this was a family vacation. We didn't get a lot of those. And so one of ours was here. And so when you think about what you guys are creating, and that there are kids in the park right behind us right now walking around enjoying this that are going to have the same experience that I have now, it means I'm rooting for you. And I know that this industry too, as soon as they heard that somebody was foolish enough to do this, they're rooting for you.
Yes.
And so you just be strong in the fact that there's a lot of people rooting for you. This is going to be great.
Yeah, we can't thank you
Appreciate
enough
that.
for just doing what you've done here.
Yeah, you really have done something special. Thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Yeah, thanks,
we can't
guys.
wait for everybody to hear it. It's gonna.
Thank you guys.
They're gonna love it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank
Love
you.
having you.
Wow, Bill and Michelle, they're a wonderful couple. You can really tell they're all in on this this wonderful entrepreneurial take on resurrecting theme parks.
Well, I love how they kind of, again, just stumbled into it. You know, we've got, again, friends from Tony Baxter, designers like Kevin and Jody, Charles Phoenix, kind of a guru of mid-century Americana. And there's just such a unique tie-in to Disney's legacy, with the original founder being in contact with both Walt Disney and Ray Kroc, and this being kind of the very first franchised theme park concept, with other parks in Santa Cruz and Illinois. And I love that, Tony kind of shared with us kind of the tie-in with Harriet Burns, the very first female Imagineer who had worked on Santa's Village, before she went to work for Disney from those great mid-century modern Mickey Mouse Club sets. And then, of course, on so many other projects at Imagineering with Fred Jerger. And so what a unique legacy and what a unique time capsule. And the fact that it's not just kind of frozen in time, that it's kind of reinvented for my kids, my family, this next generation. Just what a unique, special spot in SoCal. So blessed to have that in our backyard and so close to our studio that it's become, again, a pretty awesome annual tradition of waffles and pancakes every winter. And what a joy it was to, again, share that with Tony and his wonderful sister, Debbie, this year.
Yeah, that was cool. And Tony told a story about how he had sort of, when the park was abandoned, he snuck onto the property, went walking around, went into one room, and got scared out by squatters. I mean, this place was as dead as it could get. And today, Bill and Michelle have made it into a really wonderful place. You can wander with your family, enjoy great food, enjoy craft beer, and then go down a zip line. I mean, it's or take the mountain bikes out for miles and miles in the backcountry. It's just really, really wonderful.
Well, I'm a big believer in redeeming dead places, and again, to take a place like this that was, again, abandoned, decayed, and to now create a place that's so full of life, so full of both old and new memories being manufactured every day is really awesome.
Yeah, it really is. Well, after all that cold snow talk, I'm ready for a hot toddy by a roaring fire. How about you, Mel?
Sounds good.
All right, let's get this old sleigh back to the dock. Until next time, thanks, Mel. The Themed Attraction podcast is hosted by Freddie Martin and Mel McGowan. I got to tell you, we can't thank you enough for listening to our show and liking it and sharing it with your friends. It means so much to us. Will you leave us a review on iTunes podcasts? It really helps to share the show with so many more people. Thank you so much. We also want to thank our very special guests, Bill and Michelle Johnson of SkyPark at Santa's Village. Visit skyparksantasvillage.com and follow them on the socials at SkyPark Santa's Village on Instagram and Facebook, or at Santa's Village CA on Twitter. Get access to more stories and interviews at themedattraction.com, an insider's look at theme park design by theme park designers. Follow the action on Instagram and Twitter at Themed Attraction. Connect with Mel by email via mel@storylandstudios.com, or follow him on Twitter at Mel McGowan and Instagram at Visioneer. You can find me at freddymartin.net and follow my adventures at Skipper Freddy on Instagram and Twitter. Our theme music was composed by Rob Watson. Other music provided by The Lost Dogs. This episode was designed and produced by the one and only Dr. Barry Hill. Find him at barryrhill.com. You know, Mel, besides being a professor, Barry is also an accomplished animal trainer. Last week, he trained a rhinoceros to add and subtract. He asked the rhino what 4 minus 4 is. The rhino said, nothing. Thanks for listening, folks.